Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another video answering your questions in today's episode. I like doing Q&As. It's great to do them over pre-season obviously because there isn't any Premier League games at the moment. I did say in my previous Q&A a couple of weeks ago that once we get into the bulk of the season on this channel, I'm going to limit Q&As to once a month. Hopefully I can get more questions in, make those Q&As longer each month, and we'll have lots to speak about obviously because many things can happen in a month at Chelsea Football Club as we know from history. But got some great questions here, not all sort of transfer specific because obviously at the moment everyone's obsessed with transfers, earning Haaland. So this is going to kind of be a different episode. But let's get into your questions. Firstly here from Michael, who asks, why is it fast and technical strikers Werner, Morata, Torres, Anelka, Crespo never score as many goals for us or just generally play bad? We never seem to have a problem with a big physical guy up top, Costa, Drogba. I agree with this generally. I want to sort of admit Hernan Crespo. I want to plug a video I did on this channel back in 2019, breaking the myth why Hernan Crespo wasn't a flop at Chelsea. I wrote an article about this as well where I believe firmly that Crespo was not a flop and you can't put him in the same category as Anelka, as Torres. Even, I mean, Anelka scored quite a few goals for Chelsea in our 09-10 season. I think generally people see Anelka as a good signing for Chelsea. I think the best example, the three you give, Werner, Morata and Torres, I think suit this sort of bill a lot better. And why kind of the big physical number 9 works, Olivier Giroud is another prime example you can add on to Didier Drogba and of course Diego Costa. I sometimes wonder if it's the style of play Chelsea go for, being more of a short-term club, not having a sort of a set identity of football on the pitch that you can really give based on, you know, it kind of shifts from manager to manager. I guess generally you can say we work better in counter-attacking football in the big games, but I can't give you the Chelsea way of playing. There just isn't one, unfortunately, because that's kind of the way it's gone at Chelsea. You know, I look at the way Giroud sort of, he did score quite a few goals for Arsenal and I think was a good player for them. I think they missed him in some ways when he left, but just instantly he settled at Chelsea because of the style of play. So maybe a bit of that culturally, why players work, why they don't. I think there's many different reasons why, say, Morata didn't work at Chelsea, psychological reasons too, and just cultural things as well that don't really always connect logically to things that go on the pitch. There's many different reasons why a signing works and doesn't work, but I think that this is a big thing and why you see with the recruitment now, looking for that bigger number 9, that traditional number 9 like Haaland and Lukaku. But I think you kind of undersell the sort of the big physical guy in the sense that he's like more limited. That's not true. I mean, Costa and Drogba were very mobile players, very agile players that could be deceptively quick, not as quick as a Timo Werner obviously, but both those players when they got going were quite hard to stop. So I think sometimes we can be a little bit simplistic in the way we analyze these forwards, in the case that if you're more physical, you have physical attributes, you're going to be slower. That isn't the case for someone like Romelu Lukaku and Erling Haaland. And, you know, I think the modern game, you see kind of these forwards can sometimes have a variety of both things, and I think that's what makes them better all-round strikers. So I think maybe this will continue. I think Werner was the one player for me who may still break that mold a little bit more. So if Werner succeeds at Chelsea, then maybe we might see the perception of it changing a little bit in the future. Jimmy asks, what's your top 3 artists of all time? It depends on what day you ask me because I have so many artists in my playlist, like it looks like it's been compiled by 5 different generations, to be honest. But 3 standout ones: Kasabian, love their music, so many songs like Underdog connect with me a lot. Watsky has sort of been a great discovery for me in recent years. I love so much of his music. Definitely give him a go if you haven't already. I think he's made some great music and continues to do so. And of course, a legendary band I've got to put in here is of course Queen. Just absolutely adore their music and continue to play it. AR Hive asks, Jorginho for Ballon d'Or, his stats, individual performances, standout games and trophies won in this year 2021 so far. He's having an incredible year. Yeah, there's been so many shouts for Georgie getting the Ballon d'Or, and it's fun. You know, it's fun that Chelsea players are in the conversation for a Ballon d'Or realistically. I think that's just, whatever you think, whether it's realistic to put him in the conversation or not, I think it's good that just from a fun perspective, you know, Chelsea being champions of Europe. Jorginho has had an incredible year. His stock right now is so high. It's never been higher in his career given the summer he's had. I think the next big challenge for him is can he sustain brilliant form over a Premier League season? I think that's going to be the big challenge for him as a player. And maybe the one thing left to achieve in his career, a Premier League title, because he's got international success with Italy now at the Euros, and of course European club success with the Champions League, which was so big for him. So I think he should be in there. I think there are many players. I don't think he'll win it because a lot of the time you see attackers, goal scorers get favoured in this in this category. So I think that the Ballon d'Or usually will go to someone like Messi, who's won it so many times. I actually think an outside shout that's not, I wouldn't say an outside shout because obviously people know who this player is, but Lewandowski, I think, is an incredible year as well, goal scorer, and I think mostly a goal scorer is likely to win it. So, but Jorginho being in the conversation, I think is great for him, great for Chelsea as well. So why not? It'd be lovely to see him get that accolade if it could happen at the end of this year. Nick asks, with Chelsea being successful and increasing their fan base, do you think it's only a matter of time before the stadium rebuild upgrade rears its head again? I think there's a lot that's sort of happened with the stadium and the redevelopment that then was cut short in 2018. A lot of that had to do with Roman's situation not being in the country and it's sort of stalling. Of course, we've invested a lot of money in transfer, so that sort of gives you the impression that Roman is not disinterested with Chelsea, as was some were claiming back in 2018. I think a lot of it was with the local community as well. That there's so much to do with us getting that stadium and also relocating when the stadium's being done and redeveloped. There was years of like, will we go to Craven Cottage to do a ground share with Fulham? But you think of the size of our fan base. You think about Twickenham at the rugby stadium, going there for a couple of years. Wembley too has been touted as well. So I'd like to think that Stamford Bridge can be redeveloped because I think it's that next big step. Just on the relation, and to plug another video, I did a video with Nini that's very, long time in terms of the subject matter was we spoke about the stadium, me and Nini. I think it was this time last summer, so I'll leave it up in the cards for you to go and watch, where we discussed it and why I think he made a great point that to really make that next step as an elite club, Chelsea kind of fall behind sort of stadium revenue compared to the likes of Arsenal, the likes of Liverpool, Man United. And to really take that next step, it would be a big benefit for Chelsea to have the stadium be bigger to get more revenue in. So I wouldn't be too stunned if in the next 5 to 10 years we see this come up again, and hopefully the stadium, Stamford Bridge, is redeveloped and we don't move somewhere else, because I love the bridge, obviously. Aravinth asked, Tino Livramento probably leaving Chelsea along with Lewis Bate. How big of a loss is this for Chelsea? It's a loss. It's frustrating to see young players leave, and given what we've seen over recent years of young talent getting into the first team, it's a shame to me to think that we could be reverting back to a situation where it was just a door that briefly opened for Mason, for Reece, for Tammy, and for Fikayo, of course, when he was here, and then it's just shut. And we don't see that again till hopefully another manager who has a sort of a belief that youth can get into the first team, give them that chance again. I hope that isn't the case, because I think what Mason, what Reece, what these players give you is and Christensen too, sort of a long-term young player from the academy that has really developed in the past couple months, is that these players are good enough. The excuse that these players can't help Chelsea win big trophies is silly. I just think it looks completely ridiculous when Mason Mount plays the ball that wins the European Cup. You can't always develop a Mason Mount, but my general feeling on the academy is it should be used more to integrate into the first team. You can potentially save tons in transfer fees. You can potentially fill up positions that instead of wasting money that you maybe don't need to spend on players that don't radically transform what we have. But I think for me, it's the more long-term look at this. I'm looking at squad management and transfer sort of recruitment and success. If in 2 to 3 years' time, Chelsea in the centre-back area are suddenly left short, I'm asking, why did we let Mark Guehi go? Why didn't we give him those opportunities in the first team? You potentially have to go out and spend more than you actually need to. That's my kind of thing here. It's about Chelsea using the academy, I think, intelligently to give these players an actual pathway that they can see realistically, which clearly they haven't, because that's why they're leaving. I don't think it's a mentality problem, which I think is a really simplistic and silly take. So it's a shame. I think Livramento could have been a really good addition to the first team this year, but if he sees his path somewhere else, it's not, I don't own these players. I think that they are absolutely within their rights as a young player with a short career where many things can change, injury, luck, to go and take a risk basically and leave the Chelsea academy. I just hope that Chelsea can give more opportunities to other talented youngsters in the future and also recruit smartly so we don't regret letting these youngsters go. And finally, Kevry Jam, a great guy, definitely go and follow him on Twitter and his work with the Chelsea Social. Who could be the next shock sale? Big question is in terms of the first team. We've obviously heard rumours about Hakim Ziyech in recent months. it feels like every couple of weeks we hear a Callum Hudson-Odoi rumour that then is instantly shut down. If you've listened to my conversations with Nini and Eunice in recent weeks, we've discussed both of those players, and you can kind of see a question mark over them, but I think my feeling right now is both of them are going to stay. I don't think anything's going to happen there. I also maybe think there's a case that who's going to pay the money for them this summer to actually get them out of Chelsea, and both players still can offer a lot to Chelsea. Next shock sale, it's hard because you can't classify Tammy Abraham as a shock sale given how it's gone for him at Chelsea. Maybe Zuma, is that sort of a cheat from me in this answer, because he's not sort of a guaranteed starter under Thomas Tuchel, and I don't think many people will be stunned if he does leave this summer. I think people would understand why. It's hard. I think there's a lot of players. I would say maybe Timo Werner. If in some ridiculous way Timo Werner becomes available in a swap deal for Erling Haaland and they want Werner the other way, and that's the only way a deal can be done, then maybe Timo Werner. I'm really struggling at the moment because I think Chelsea I think they have a very strong squad that only needs a few additions. So I'd maybe say Werner this summer. I would look at both Callum Hudson-Odoi and Hakim Ziyech as a potential shock sale maybe next summer, depending on how both of those players perform and sort of get opportunities. How their next season goes, I think will be pivotal to their Chelsea career, and I'd maybe be looking next season as maybe those two players as potential exits, dependent on of course how things go. So I don't see one this summer. Maybe next summer is where both of those players' futures could be decided elsewhere. But that is it for this Q&A. Thank you once again for submitting your brilliant questions. Apologies to those I couldn't get to today. Thank you guys for watching. Follow me on Twitter at SonOfChelsea, and I'll see you again.